Well, those are the headlines at this hour, but let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. Joining me is historian and broadcaster Kate Williams. Kate, good evening to you.
Thanks for having me.
Now then, as you can imagine, and as we probably expected, the missing 5-year-old April Jones dominates the headlines. And we wanted to start off with the Eye.
Dominates the headlines. A lot of pictures, a lot of papers leading with April Jones, her disappearance. Very moving pictures here, the front of the Eye, talking about the arrest, the local Mail. The Daily Express also using the same picture, this very moving picture of her with her toy dog, this desperate search, showing these volunteers searching all over the place. I mean, in this terrible weather, they're out there searching, hundreds of volunteers.
And hundreds of people, yes.
Calling out for her, desperately trying to find her. And this picture here from the front of the Mail, please let our little April come home safe, just as the parents were saying in the press conference earlier. This very simple, very moving message. And, you know, let's hope she will come home safe. So those very, well, a lot of the papers are leading on this very disturbing, distressing story. The other big story is Miliband, Ed Miliband's
Indeed, that seems to have gone down very well, hasn't
absolutely. It's very, very interesting, Gavin. I mean, you know, it seems absolutely the papers are in consensus. It's like the Olympics opening ceremony. It's all great. So the Guardian here, we will probably expect the Guardian to praise a good speech from Ed, but it's really saying it's an audacious raid deep into Conservative heritage. Polly Timeboy saying here, that was it, the day Ed Miliband wiped the smile off Conservative faces, breathtaking bravura. So it's all these big praises, all these big words. I mean, you know, I think a lot of us have thought perhaps that Ed wasn't a statesman, wasn't the big figure that we needed, but what they're saying, what the newspapers are saying, all the journalists there seem to be saying this is absolutely incredible. A big moment, the big speech, no notes, just, you know, one big, you know, absolute invoking to the supporters. So and a lot of support.
A couple of things that I noticed. One Nation was, I think, mentioned 44 times in an hour. But it was, of course, that was the quote taken from the Conservatives, as Nick Robinson was saying. But also that not talking with Autocue. Very interesting, because that's, of course, what David Cameron did when he got elected as leader of the Conservatives. And with the conference for the Tories starting on Sunday, it's a very interesting timing on all this.
Well, you're absolutely right, Gavin. And, of course, the Liberal Democrat conference pretty much passed us by. There wasn't that much coverage. There wasn't this kind of coverage. And this is really making Ed Miliband into a hero. And what really interests me, you know, we're seeing this on front of every page. So the Independent is equally full of praise. Miliband finds his voice. This One Nation party, this One Nation has gone down brilliantly. And what is really fascinating me is the Mail is very positive about this. We're the true One Nation party. Very positive coverage here from the Mail, which isn't obviously a normally Labour paper, normally pretty critical. So he's saying it's an audacious attempt to claim the One Nation philosophy as Conservative opponents, and really quoting a lot from here and saying he has help for business, he's apologising in the right aspects, and also being very kind to Mrs Miliband's style revolution.
Yes, I know.
Labour consorts do not often get an easy ride from the Mail. They've been, you know, Jerry Blair felt she was victimised.
Yes.
You know, and this is, you know, they're saying she would look great. It was all marvellous. Makeup and hair was apparently perfect. And what I do find interesting is all the newspapers are talking about how much he is talking about using the discourse of Disraeli here. Benjamin Disraeli, the great 19th century statesman, his idea that we should be one nation, not divided between rich and poor. Ed Miliband is saying David Cameron has essentially divided and ruled north and south, rich and poor. And invoking Disraeli, a very great statesman, a great friend of Queen Victoria, is very interesting because, of course, he was a Conservative statesman. He wasn't Labour at all. So really showing, I think, that Ed Miliband has really made a very clever move here to win over a lot of the centre ground, and they're essentially occupying the centre ground that he feels the Conservatives have vacated. So a big movement in politics, and I think it surprised us all.
But one of the criticisms that's come out, it was policy light, but I suppose it was never going to be policy heavy, was it?
Well, you're absolutely right. But what's very interesting here is the Times, again, not always a pro-Labour paper, has said that, OK, it was policy light, there wasn't much essential description of policy, although Ed Miliband did say very clearly he was going to end the experimental, what he called the experiment, the dismantling of the NHS, the privatisation. That was going to end. But it said, you know, Philip Collins' analysis here is saying it could become the basis of meaningful party politics. So it's, even though these visions of Britain, they come back to Labour, this is a way in which he's talking about the NHS, about benefits, about the future, about business. So really people are saying he's got the right discourse, he's got the right words. He might have gone on a bit too long, because he did go on a bit too long, but he's even got policy there. And even the Financial Times, on the front of the Financial Times, he's reaching out to business with one nation Labour vision. And it's it's hailed here, the Financial Times is saying it's hailed as a turning point in the party's relationship with business, which has been in effect frozen since the last election. So everyone is pleased. The fashion commentators on the wives, the businessmen, everyone is pleased. And so this is a real high point of the party conference here that I don't think we could have expected. And we are simply, absolutely, as you say, going to have to see, can the Conservatives, can David Cameron match up to this real example of great statesmanship? Because what we're looking for, I think, in these austere times, these struggling times, is a statesman, someone who can represent us abroad, someone with experience. And people have said, oh, you know, Ed Miliband's a bit, you know, he seems a bit inexperienced, he's a bit green behind the ears. Well, he proved us all wrong. I mean, so let's see if this positive coverage continues, and let's see if Cameron can beat it.
And also, it was interesting that apparently lots of delegates walked in thinking they still had chosen the wrong Miliband, but actually walked out thinking, actually, I think we've chosen the right Miliband.
Walking out cheering Ed, absolutely. And I think, you know, they're really saying here that Labour are coming out of the shadow of having essentially lost the election, although, you know, the Conservatives only won in coalition, but Labour's coming out of that shadow. They're remaking themselves, their new ideas, new strategies, and all are lying behind Ed. And I think that, you know, we saw the delegates clapping and cheering. So, you know, invoking Disraeli, invoking Victorian statesmen is clearly the way to go. So, so let's see who tries to.
As a historian, you enjoy that. Well, yes, we'll see what happens next week with the Conservatives.
Obviously, Churchill is always the one we think of. People always talk about Churchill. We always invoke Churchill. We always recall him. But, you know, invoking Disraeli was a very wise move, I think.
All right. Now, staying with the Financial Times as well, there's this interesting story that all our plans in Britain here to provide quite a large percentage, 20% odd of our power through nuclear power, could be derailed because one of the big bidders for it, a French and Chinese merger, actually might not happen now.
Yes, I mean, this is a big story for the Financial Times. This big suggestion that essentially, you know, the principle is that, especially a governmental principle, that we have an energy crisis. We need nuclear reactors. There are many people who might argue against that, but we need nuclear reactors, but we simply don't have the financial clout to build them for ourselves. We need investors, and this French-Chinese bid was the idea that they would be able to fund it. This engineering company, Avra, and China Guangdong Nuclear Power Group, they'd be the way forwards, but they've walked away from it. They obviously don't see this as a great investment, so this is a big question now, where to for British nuclear power, and of course the British nuclear reactors. These are expensive things, and safety is paramount. They have to be perfect.
All right, now moving across the waters. Now we've been talking politics here with the Labour Party conference, Conservative Party conference, but showdown in the Rocky Mountains, the inside pages of the Times.
Big showdown today. This big debate, the head-to-head debate in the Rocky Mountains. Very exciting. The climax of the most expensive election campaign in American history is coming up, and it's really all about Romney because he's just got to turn these polls down. The swing states, he's less popular with them. He's got 90 minutes tonight to change that momentum, to get back in popularity, to really please people once more. And so he's been having to, you know, really practice hard. No mistakes, no gaffes, you know, try and get those one-liners, no silly words, no questions of why on earth can't my wife open the windows on aeroplanes and silly questions like that. He's got to be absolutely on the money. And the big question is, can he win? Can he really provide this great oratory? Because a lot of the great oratory has been provided by his wife. I mean, she got a lot of the coverage.
She did,
yes. Everyone said, oh, that was a marvellous speech. Can he do it? And, you know, the suggestion is that, you know, Obama is probably in the front running, but he has to learn some modesty. His aides have been drilling him in the essential modesty. He's got to learn modesty. He's got to be a bit more modest because who knows what's going to happen. But it certainly seems at the moment as if Obama is ahead, and unless Romney pulls off a fabulous performance tonight, a really fabulous statesman-like, you know, perhaps he should ring Ed, a statesman-like performance, and hope Ed's not playing tennis, hope that a fabulous performance, then it looks like Obama is going to stay in the lead, particularly in these crucial, these very important swing states. And of course, not long to the election now, it's coming up soon.
No, all right, Kate, thank you very much indeed. That was very elucidating. Great, thanks. Time for the weather.